Hello everyone. In the earlier videos we have discussed about how to create the deployment object and the service object. Now in this deployment object and service object, mainly not the service object but the deployment object, we want to add uh, details for the volumes. Here these volumes will be added with help of the host path. The earlier we have discussed about the ephemerals volumes, and the host path is one of the ephemerals volumes, and host path only can be used if there is only one worker nodes. If there are multiple worker nodes, then host path may not be used. So just for the demonstration purpose how the volumes are working, we want to start with the host path, and later on with some other video we will discuss about the adding the persistent volumes. So let us start working on adding details for the host path volumes. So what I have done is I have added all the files related to my configurations that we have used here inside a D Docker volume K8s. Okay, inside that one I have defined all the D Docker volume K8s. Over here I have added all the details, all the configuration files, and I want to attach this host file path with my pod. So the way we have to do is, first thing we need to define details of the volumes, and we add that right below the containers. So right below the containers we will add the volume details. Okay, so just here let us try to go to the indent where the container is there. Then we say okay, volumes, and this accepts list. As we have discussed earlier, we can simultaneously can add multiple volumes, so it accepts the list. In our case we just want to add one volumes with the host path. So let us give some name to the volumes, and I will give the name config host path volumes. Then I need to add the detail of the type of the volume that I want to add, and in this case I want to add host path, and inside this one I need to provide details of where my exact volume is residing. In this case it is residing in the D Docker volume K8s. In the Windows the way you define is, let us just do the indent, path, and then in the Windows you have to do like run, then desktop, then mount, then host, and then detail of the path, exact path that you want to use as a volume, Docker volume K8s. So this is my path that I want to use as a volume. This is the external file system that I am using. And also I need to add another tag, that is type. So there are different way we can do. There are like one type is to directory or create, one is just the you know directory, or you can have only the create. In our case the directories already exist and there are already files available, so we can just say like directory. We define volume here. Now we need to add this volume with the containers, right? So we can add anywhere, but let us try to add right below the ports details and just above the environment at the same indentation as other details of the containers. So here we have to add volume mounts, and inside this again it can take multiple volumes simultaneously. So it is accepting a list. But in our case, we will use only one volume. Now we have to provide the mount path. This mount path is the internal path of the volume that we are using. Here in this case, we have used the volume app config, right? So this same path we have to define here. This is the internal path of the volume. And also from where it is using this to the external path, and so we have to provide the name of the volume. So this is the external path we are using, config host path volume. So this is how we need to define the detail for the volume. So first we have defined volume detail, and then we define the volume mount. These two things we have added. Now it's time to run and see how the volumes gets attached with the applications. So the way we can run is kubectl apply -f and the name of the file that we want to use as a volume. So config server host path and enter. So what it will do is it will pull this image, and then it will try to add all the configurations that we have defined. So it will use this Spring Cloud config server native search locations, and the search locations is app configs. This is the internal path of the volume, and then it will try to see that what is the volume name it is using. So it is using the config host path volume name, and then it will go here and try to see what kind of volume is this. In this case it is a host path. So it will go and fetch the details or fetch the files from here and attach those files with a app config. Now let us see now, is our volumes has started, is our containers have started. So the way we can see is kubectl get services. So this shows that my service has been started. Here if you see, we had defined this as a load balancer, and it is a localhost IP it is using, and it is started at a port 8071. Then we can also check whether the deployments objects are created. So it is saying that okay, config server deployment objects was created and 1 and 1. That means it is initiated and it started now, and it is like sometimes back it started. Then we also can check what is the pod detail. So now we are able to see the pod detail as well. We can go inside the pod and we can see the logs inside the pod. So now we can see that the pod has been started, right? Now let us go back into the Postman and try to fetch the details of the configurations that we have defined. So the flight service default details, if I try to fetch that details, I should be able to get that details. I can get the details of the QA property configurations. Similarly, I can get the configurations of the prod flight service. Similarly, I can get the details for the train service as well. So now in this case, uh, my pod has picked up the files that we have defined inside the external path. So it is taking all the files that we have defined externally. Now let us try to see inside the pod as well. So we can open the pod into the interactive mode. Get pods kubectl exec minus it. This is the command that we need to open and we need to use to open the pod into the interactive mode. So I copy the pod name and then I go inside that. So if I do ls, I should be able to see what is the file that it has. It is inside the apps and there is a config folder. So I can go inside the config and here I can see this app configs. This is the same folder that I have defined in the a Docker file as a volume. So it is using the same folder, right? And if I do ls, I should be able to see all the files, that is prod, QA, flight service, then train service prod, train service QA, train service YAML. And these same files I can see right outside here, right? So this is how the volumes is getting attached in a pod with the help of a host path. So I hope you are getting what I am trying to explain. Thank you very much for watching this video. In the next video, we'll try to explore another type of the volume, that is a persistent volume.